Welcome into the Toyota Lounge for the DNVR Avalanche Podcast, powered by your Front Range Toyota dealerships. We got Megan, we got Eric, we got Rudo coming into you live on a Monday in the middle of August. Somehow we're still talking hockey, so you're welcome. Yeah, I'm being that confident about it. It'll be an interesting show because I want to talk about potential upside on the Colorado Avalanche roster. Oh, man, I have to sneeze. No, hang on. We're good. It went away. All right. Saved it. Counts for sure. Upside on the Colorado Avalanche roster. And the thing about upside is there is no defined path of upside for a player. Yes, the most obvious one is, hey, he produced this much more compared to previous seasons. But you can find upside in a guy learning how to penalty kill. You can find upside in a guy learning a specific skill, whether that's block shots or stealing pucks or finding a better shot, whatever it might be. It's a lot looser than really looking at just production. I wanted to bring that up. I'm sure a lot of what we'll talk about today is production, but there are other ways that a player can make themselves effective as they go into an NHL season. With that being said, I wanted to start with the top of the Avs lineup. Because if we're talking about players with the most upside, I don't think Nathan MacKinnon is one of them. It's Nathan MacKinnon. I don't want to say
you don't think Nate can get better.
I mean, I don't want to say that. I think he could have a better season. But just on a percentage basis, for him to have a significantly better season would require one of the all-time greatest seasons ever.
This is a baseline I want to establish for this pod. The ceiling for MacKinnon on the heels of a 140-point season, if he has a 150-point season, that 10-point difference maybe isn't
that big.
As big compared to some of the other players we're talking about hoping to take maybe a 20-point leap. And that's just in measuring production alone. But for the purpose of this show, I think it is important to make that distinction that it's a baseline where the player was already at, right? The success that they were consistently achieving. And so for MacKinnon, that's already pretty high.
Yeah.
And it will eliminate then a few players from the conversation. And really what those players do is consistency. And so that's
true.
A wonderful quality for them to have, that they're able to consistently be good year after year. But we spend so many pods talking about how excellent Nathan MacKinnon is. This is for the guys who have room for improvement to take a huge step forward and impact the Avs in a big way next year.
I think we should tier it out too, you know what I mean? Internally have some rules in the sense that if MacKinnon goes 140 to 150, you know what I mean? If you're using points, then that 10 points there should be worth 5 points for, a guy that gets 30 points a year. Does that make sense? Because if he goes from 140 to 150, and I'll second Tiff on this one when she piped in there, that was going to be one of my guys, you know what I mean? And because I think, again, we'll talk about it, but I think that, to your point, there's so many ways you can impact the game, right? And there's so many, a shift in game and a season. But you're right, some guys, it's like, I go back to Yeller or guys like that, right, from the old days. It's like, people that don't really watch hockey are like, oh, this guy only has 4 goals and 8 assists this season. Yeah, but there's so many ways that, he touches the game, and that should be part of improvement, which, I agree with what both of you are saying, you know what I mean? So it's interesting to see, what you can do. Of course, the guy that's got the toughest task to do is MacKinnon, because it's ridiculous what he did last year.
Yeah.
So it's ridiculous. But it's like, you know what? We'll get into it, but if I was a betting man, I'd bet that he gets 150. I'm just saying, you know what I mean? And if he does that, you'd be like, that's a dumb bet. You know what I mean? And you're right, it is a dumb bet. You know what I mean? But, I'm a gambler. I like it.
Yeah, it's one of those weird situations where MacKinnon going from 140 to 150 might seem more impressive than someone jumping from 30 to 50 points or whatever it might be. But it's also still just 10 more points. It's not a massive jump in production for him. To be honest, even if it goes the other, if MacKinnon only has a 130-point season, I don't think anyone would be upset about that. So just trying to be a little bit realistic about it.
Just crossing that 100-point threshold feels really impressive.
Yeah.
Similarly, for a player like Mikko to have done it 2 years back to back.
And that's who I wanted to talk about next, because I do think a lot of us feel that there probably is more in the tank for Mikko. But is it, hey, there's more upside here, or is it this guy's just really good at hockey, so we have really high expectations?
He's an interesting player to talk about because the production is obviously there, and there will be periods of hockey where he feels a little less visible and you feel frustration, but then you look at the points per game and it's still tracking at such a high clip. And so for Mikko, where there's more to give, I don't think is from a production standpoint so much as those other ways that we talk about, players being able to impact the game. I think a little bit of it is production, but it's just that engagement and willingness that you see sometimes wane for Mikko Rantanen.
Yeah.
If there was a more consistent effort all 82 games, no need for Ismo Lehkonen to get after him with any criticism, I think that's where there's the room for improvement for Mikko. And it's really hard. This is a nitpick, right? Because the production is still always there and he's a counted on leader in the Avs group. It's hard to ask more of Mikko, but I think that's the next level for him as a leader, is to have a consistent effort for the entire 82 games, of course, with exception to any injury that might crop up. That's where I think he takes the next step as a leader. I think he's already so respected in that locker room, but I think that's where the maturity just goes up a notch for him, and it's been trending in that direction. He has been becoming a more mature player every season, and I think that just needs to continue to be the direction he goes in.
My dream player, I say it all the time, is Cale. We all know that. I guess he's the best player on the planet. Fine, move on. My favorite player is Mikko. Always been for a while, but there's like something, there's an aura about him around town, right? Not from outside the league, but from Avs fans that see him every day, and us and media, and that Mikko Rantanen, I'm convinced if he was, well, first of all, what I'm going to say doesn't make sense, but if Mikko Rantanen was 6 foot tall, then we would never be mad at him. You know what I mean? We're mad at him because he's so big, and it's like an elephant, right? He's the moves, right? It's just like, it's so flagrant when you don't move your feet, or when you don't, it's just worse than a guy that's not so big, But then again, if he wasn't that big, then he wouldn't be who he is, right? So that's why I say it doesn't make sense what I'm saying. But with that said, I do think just because of his style and the way he plays the game, sometimes you feel he's not doing much, and he could get 120 points this year, and then people would still be pissed. Oh, freaking Mikko, and it's like, I feel like he's in no man's land. I feel it's hard for him to win when it comes to his detractors. You know what I mean? When it comes down to the people that like him, then, or to his teammates. You know what? You ask 20 guys in the locker room, who wants to play on the line with Mikko? You got 20 guys raise their hand. Absolutely. Are you kidding me? Smart player, got a great shot, can dig. You know what I mean? And it's like, but he always leaves you wanting more. And I think that's because it's like his size, and it's just the whatever you call that. Looking at it, it just makes you wanna. Again, like James is saying, right? 8th all time in playoff points per game. This guy's a performer. This guy is like, he's 8th and then all time, but then we're like, oh, fuck, he should be 5th. You know what I mean? Like, he can't win. You know what I mean? This guy's that can't win. I feel he's that guy. Now, do I think it bothers him? Not at all. Do I think that I think he's a self-confident guy. Like like Megan just said, he's very well liked by his teammates. He's a well-liked leader. He's a dream. Because he's got some fierce competitor, and then it comes out. You see him when he takes those stupid penalties, right? He does. Sometimes you're like, oh god, that's a retaliation penalty. But I feel Mikko he was going to be one of my guys. I believe he's going to pop this year. Like, it's going to be one of those. Like, all of a sudden people are like, oh, maybe he is good. No shit, he's good. He's
I don't think there's any doubt that he's really good. I do wonder if he can get back to that guy that scores 55 goals type of level.
That's what I want from Mikko.
I'm going. He's breaking Goo's record, right? Franchise's Goo?
Yeah.
Yep. I think it's 57 or 58. I forget. Yeah.
He missed it by 1 or 2 sorry, Goo. We'll have Goo on, but you know what I mean? I think he breaks Goo's record this year.
Leave no doubt is what I think
Yep.
Mikko needs to embody in this next year. Just leave no doubt, leave no room for question.
Fully agree. I want to round out the Avs' big three here. E, you might have to turn your microphone up more or make sure you're using the right device. It sounds like people think you're a little quiet on the show.
Gotcha.
Yeah, you're definitely not using that microphone.
It's not on, I don't think,
Yeah, you're on a different microphone.
Maybe the built-in mic if it's a phone.
While he's figuring that out, though, Cale Makar. Cale Makar had a 90-point season last year, and every day everyone woke up and said, yeah, he's just okay. He's just doing, it doesn't look like Cale Makar this year. Same question with Mikko. Are expectations just absurdly too high? Or does Cale Makar really have another level to his game?
With Cale, I am more cautious about this conversation because the reasons I felt like at times his game appeared strained was because of fear of the new normal with the lingering whatever lower body issue. I don't want to classify it as an injury. I just think it caused him.
He wasn't 100%.
I don't think he was 100%, and he had to get adjusted to this new normal that I'm alluding to. And I think that led to the season that we saw because from a production standpoint, he still surpassed himself. So that's not really where I think he felt there was more on the table or there were things left on the table. What I worry about with Makar, though, is where can he get better because the usage is already so high. It's really just a matter of him feeling good physically and comfortable in his game because the amount of opportunity that he gets is right there. You almost don't want that to ever become too much to where he's stretched too thin, which I think is already the existing fear around him. And so I think for this next year, the way that he takes a step forward is just by returning to Cale Makar. I think this last year there was maybe some discomfort or lack of confidence at time because he was adjusting to that new normal. And I think now that he's got a full season of that under his belt, it's time for him to return to Cale Makar as we know him.
There are not a lot of players in the NHL where I think you could say, you know what, he might actually be better if you gave him a little bit less ice time.
And he'll never expressly ask for it. He actually might. I'm going to give Cale some credit. I think he understands his limits better than we give him credit for. But even to that point, he's just so important to the team that it's hard to justify not playing Cale Makar.
Yeah, agreed. E?
Is that better now?
I think so.
I think so.
Oh, yeah. Because I think I had it on the wrong switch. Sorry.
Yeah.
Is it good?
It's all good.
Everything's okay. Good. Well, that's my thing with Cale too. You know what I mean? That it's kind of like Mac. I think if you ask me right now, we're not doing projections, whatever it is, predictions, but I think he wins the Norris, and then it go from a shitty 90-point season, right, quote unquote, right, to winning the Norris. That's again. Like Mac, if you measure it, it's not like, that much. You might get 95 and have an unbelievable season, or you might get 89 points and then he's the MVP, right? So it's not always about points, but we're talking about a season this year where I do believe he's going to get back to his form. I do believe he was a little bit tentative last year. I do believe it comes back to, those short summers or not having, you could tell he was lingering a little bit. He's not going to say it because you don't want to use that as an excuse, but he was never really tip top. And, he did some different things in the summer. He's the one that admitted to that in training camp, meaning because he was trying to manage stuff. And, let's say it is his hip. I'm not going to speculate, but something like that. Right. And that's why I agree with you. Ice time can be beneficial for him if it goes down, and you got guys like DeHaan and guys like whoever can all of a sudden, assert themselves as good penalty killers. And, and I know we talked to Crow the other day about, those guys want to get on the ice, but at some point you can manage his ice time. And I do believe Cale is back this year. He can get back to his, not just production, but being Cale, you know what I mean? And completely dominate the D zone, right? Just with exit and not, missing a read here and there and being sharp and not like, oh, wow, that was Cale's man, or, you know what I mean? And again, I'm nitpicking. Again, I said he's the best player on the planet, so I'm not nitpicking. I'm just, I think he is superhuman, and I think we're going to see that this year.
I hope you're right. Hopefully he can stay fully healthy. Hopefully all these people can stay fully healthy, and you can stay fully healthy too with UC Health. Right now, Coach Prime even is getting in with UC Health and wants to help you and other Coloradans be your healthiest selves as the Chief Motivation Officer of UC Health's Ready, Set, Co. Challenge. The goal of this challenge is to get Colorado back to its rightful place as the healthiest state in the country. So jump on with Coach Prime. Come have a good time and exercise, sleep, eat, and even practice mindfulness in the best way with UC Health. Ready, Set, Co. is a statewide challenge, of course, so everybody can get involved, and it's about getting everyone healthier. Not just you, not just your neighbor, but, everyone can encourage each other to be a little bit healthier every single day. So becoming just a little bit better is the best way to just feel better in general. If you want to join UC Health's Ready, Set, Co. Challenge, click the link in the show notes or go to uchealth.org/readysetco today. And once you're feeling all healthy and you've got in with UC Health and feeling good, make sure you also check out your newest Toyota. Maybe you want to go to the hiking trails and you got to drive down there. Toyota is the car for you. They have a vehicle for everyone, whether it be trucks, SUVs, sedans, you name it. Toyota's got it all, including 17 different all-wheel drive vehicles, 16 different hybrid vehicles, and something for everyone. You go, of course, their classic trucks like the Tundra and the Tacoma, the RAV4, the 4Runner, the Corolla, the Prius, whatever it might be. Toyota has a vehicle out there that fits your needs, especially here in Colorado, where you might experience some weather from time to time, although lately it's just been ridiculously hot. So, at least they've got air conditioning. Go over to your Front Range Toyota dealership today. Get yourself in the official vehicle of DNVR at AutoNation Toyota, Arapahoe and Centennial, Corwin Toyota in Boulder, Groove Toyota in Littleton, Mountain States Toyota in Denver, Stevenson Toyota East in Aurora, Stevenson Toyota West in Lakewood. Toyota is the official vehicle of the Colorado Avalanche. All right, second period of the DNVR Avalanche podcast. I want to keep with the Avs top six. You have that. Whoever ends up playing with MacKinnon, one of these guys probably does. But Lehkonen, to me, I think you feel like you pretty much know what you're going to get out of Lehkonen. I don't know that there's a ton more upside in his game. Not that his game is bad. I love him in the top six, but you're just not expecting a ton more there. So that leaves Drouin and Mittelstadt as those two guys who both had very solid years last season, 57, 58 point range. Is there more to give? Let me ask you that. Or should I realistically expect 60-ish point seasons from these guys, or can someone really take another step?
That's Colton?
Mittelstadt and Drouin.
Yeah. And Drouin. Yeah. Okay. For Casey Mittelstadt, it's interesting. It feels like it's easier to project him in the 60-point range because he makes the jump over around the deadline, and the pace that he produces at immediately for Colorado isn't quite a 60-point pace, but it's still pretty high. It translates to above 45, and that's with no familiarity coming into it. Then in the playoffs, with no previous playoff experience, he's above a 60-point pace easily. Now, That's a heightened environment and a smaller sample size, so I won't necessarily project it to translate into the regular season, but it was nice getting him after the deadline to have a little bit of time for him to acclimate coming into this year now with a full runway ahead of him. I do think that is well within possibility for Mittelstadt, and it kind of needs to be. That's the expectation. That's why this extension is such a good thing for the Avs to lock up a second-line centerman option, and the early returns for Mittelstadt make it seem within reach for him. With Drouin, the environment that allowed him to produce at that pace last year still exists going into this year. And there is still the importance of this is just a one-year contract, and he clearly took an affordable deal with Colorado. Whatever his next contract is, and if it continues to be in Colorado, he's still fighting for not his job, but for the money that he probably deserved this time around. And so there's such importance placed on Drouin having another good year. And all the pieces that allowed him to have success last year, including himself, still exist. So I'm counting on 60 points, but the possibility even more, because there was that 10-game stretch at the start of the year for Drouin where people were ready to write him off. Now he's got a full year under his belt. Hopefully the confidence is high, and that just puts him ahead of a 60-point pace. He's able to accomplish even more than that now that he has the confidence of last year.
It's funny because Foo 2006 just said it in chat, like, he became my best friend, because that's what I have on my notes when you send, this weekend about what we're going to talk about, what do you guys want to talk, all that stuff. For me was, here's my thoughts, and it goes with what Foo, just said. I do believe because of the Natushkin and Landeskog, that's just me. I didn't talk to Bednar. If he's listening, then, good on him. Then he's listening to great people. I do believe Mikko plays with Mittelstadt. And Mittelstadt, what I'll say about him is, I should try to find my reports. I didn't like him. He's making me, again, him and Drouin are making me eat my words.
Eric likes guys who can do pull-ups, confirmed.
Yeah. No, I like Sam Bennett, and he couldn't do one. So, it's just like Mittelstadt. Yeah, you're right. Opposite. So, Mittelstadt, I think I'm so impressed by this guy. And again, he's probably my number 2. That I was wrong. Again, I've been wrong with more than 2 people, but I'm saying my biggest miss would have been Mittelstadt, because I would have never pushed for him. I didn't think he could do it. I didn't think he could become what he's becoming here. Now, it's a dream scenario for a player like that. You got some skill. Actually, you got a shit ton of skill, not some skill. He's got a shit ton of skill. He's got an incredible vision. And when he crosses that blue line, the way he makes plays, whether with speed or slow motion, is outstanding. And not many people can do that. It's a special gift he has. He can make a play out of nothing. Some people, they need runways to make a play. They need runways to make a shot. This guy doesn't need much. It's the expression, he can stick handle in the phone booth for people. We used to have phone booth. I know you guys are freaking, there's no more phone booth for you guys. I know, I get that. But the expression back then was that, and that's exactly what he can do. So I think if you team him up with Mikko, he pops off. And I think this guy can really pop off. Like, does he get to the Kadri range? Probably not. You know what I mean? But he's going to be damn close. And on the flip side of things, Drouin made me eat my words last year, where I was not a fan for a few years. I was not a fan of the addition. But he grew on me, and then I tipped my hat, where one of the best turnaround seasons in a long time, or in the last 10, 15 years in the NHL. I don't want to hear people that say, oh, he was outstanding. And especially after his start, that was not very good. Had to gain the trust. And then now if you're dealing with that, he's capable of a lot more. Do I think Jonathan Drouin can be what AJ was talking about last year when he called him freaking Shakespeare or whatever it is? I do believe that he is exactly that. I do believe he's a point per game guy. I do believe he breaks the 80 mark this year, especially if he has even a bigger role on that line with Mac, and then Mikko slides down with the other side. You take on a little bit more responsibility shift by shift that way. Makes you touch the puck a little more. I do believe those 2 guys pop off. Now, do they pop off as much as Mac from 140 to 148? They will more. But yeah, and again, I would have to give it to Mac anyway, because it's multiple by 5. 8 times 40. 5 is 40.
The Avs are in this spot where there is that one spot in the top 6 where they don't really know what the answer is going to be. Obviously, we've talked about Landy and Val a million times, so you understand that situation. But that situation just becomes less and less of a problem if you can see Mittelstadt taking that next step. If Drouin has another level, yeah, obviously that top 6 spot is still important, but maybe you get away with a 40 to 50 point guy in that spot if you have a 70 point year from a Jonathan Drouin or something like that. So it is pretty important, I think, particularly for these second line guys, they might end up playing on the top line, to have higher end seasons this year for Colorado. Then you move down beyond that. The two guys I'm absolutely certain will be in the lineup every night for Colorado in the bottom six of their forward core is Ross Colton and Miles Wood. Colton has a 40-point season, career high last year. Can we expect more in that category, or is Colton more of a there are other avenues of opportunity to build on his game in Colorado?
There's absolutely... Oh, go ahead, Eric. You start this one.
No, you go ahead. Go ahead.
I started each one before.
Okay,
go,
that's
Eric.
Fine. Sorry, I'll go. Here's my thoughts on Colton, and I like Ross Colton. Always have, always will. I think the expectations when he got here last year, because of the hole at 2C, created like, oh, this might be our 2C. This might be a better opportunity. I think Ross Colton, and I would take him. I'm a GM in the NHL. I take him 100% his whole career. He's a dream because of the efforts. Always there's a good person. He's got more skill than people give him credit. Now, does he have skill of a top six? That's where I become a no. Like, no. I'm a naysayer. I think he's the perfect third-line center. And then you're going to say, yeah, but at $4 million, it's a little hefty. Like I said, it goes back to they were protecting themselves last year, too, with the big hole at 2C. So I do believe he is a perfect third-line guy. He's a guy that got his 40 points last year. Can he reach 50? I mean, I think he's the way I would best describe him is if he gets you between 40 to 50 points a year in the situation that he's in with the Avalanche, then I think you should be happy and you should be moving forward. And you're like, wow, we're pretty strong there on that third line in the middle. Now, in Tampa, smaller, whatever it was, yeah, of course you don't hit. That's why he had a career year last year. I think he was used a lot more in different situations than he was in Tampa. So I do believe he's a 40, 50-point guy. I think you saw, and it's not a negative thing by saying that, you saw a career year. Does he keep going in that path? Probably, but I wouldn't say it's a 15-point jump or 20-point jump. You know what I mean? I think that if he could just keep doing what he's doing and what he brings, then he's going to feel even more comfortable. He's going to be a huge asset there in that third hole there for the Avs.
I think for Colton, the production is what wasn't fully tapped into last year. Okay. But the other things that he improved on were so important. I don't see it as a knock on him. And so the 40 points, in my mind, he's a future 60-point player, but the only way to get there is to have a 50-point season. And so that's what I have my sights set on for him next year. I think that there were limitations with his production because he was moving throughout the lineup at times. He was getting adjusted to being a centerman full-time. And so his line mates on a given night could vary. And Miles Wood wasn't necessarily going to be the source of production for that line. And so together, they were supposed to be a catalyst for production, but they needed another piece to really allow them to be a line that has a little bit more of an offensive punch than we saw. We were teased that with Logan O'Connor, but the health varied for both LOC and Wood, that Miles Wood didn't really have a lot of consistency with them for long. And so while he's also getting adjusted to being a centerman full-time, I think that now that he has a full year of getting to play down the middle, because that is an area we saw improvement, I think other ways he takes a step forward beyond just production are becoming a more reliable guy at the face-off circle. I think that's just an area of need for the team generally, and I'm not looking to MacKinnon necessarily to fill it. But where I see greater need, where Ross Colton, his upside could be even higher, is they do need a centerman on the PK. And this was just not something they really tried him with last year. And I don't need to lock him in as the PK center full-time all year, but I think with Yakov Trenin out of the picture, they do need somebody to reliably win draws on the PK.
Can't be worse than Cogs.
Exactly. Can't be worse than Cogs, right? Also, Cogliano retiring.
Yeah.
It opens this opportunity. Why not? Why not try him there? This is where there's room for upside. And so I'd like to see a little bit more production And then these other aspects of his game, if he wants to get even stronger at the dot, which I actually think he had a pretty good year at the dot, but on the PK in particular, he can have a pretty big impact, especially for the middle of that Avs lineup where they do want to get more competitive and have a more well-balanced attack. And that starts with having a competitive third line.
I happen to know this statistic by chance. On the penalty kill, Cogliano had a 36% face-off win percentage.
It can't be worse than
that. I think Colton could accidentally do about 10% better than that. Definitely a room for impact there.
Yeah, if I can add that just quickly, here's my take on Colton. If I sit down with him, I'm his coach. My name is Jared Bednar. This is what I see to him. And it's tough to hear sometimes because I think everybody likes to score goals. Everybody likes to get points, But I think it's more, if you're aligned with Wood and LOC, I don't care if you guys get 40, 50 points. I really don't care. I think if you guys play the right way and you bring momentum and you get 30 points, I'm all good. I don't care because you bring that aspect to the game. And then, buddy, you might not get a lot of power play time, but you're going to become one of our main PK guys. And I think it's very important for them he's going to eat more ice time that way. But you got to get away from like, oh no, but I need my power play time. Because we all do. Because we all got, we always want points. But you know what? You have your contract. You don't worry about points right now. Worry about taking over the whole left by Cogliano. What people can say was, done by the end or whatever it was. The job wasn't at the back. Whatever it was. Colton can take that role and become that guy. And I think it's very important. If you look at Cogs, early in his career, offensive guy. Always remember that. He didn't become that. He became because he's smart and then he found the role. And I think if Ross can do that, where his role was a little bit all over the place last year, so does, because of all the reasons. But I do believe they have someone in there that's very valuable.
Yep, and we... This is a year ago now, but last offseason we talked to Ross and he talked about penalty killing at the AHL level, and there's some experience there, so I would love to see it. On that note, we are brought to you by ourselves. If you didn't know, coming this weekend, there's a DNVR Rockies takeover. If you want to go enjoy the ballpark for Todd Helton Day, that would be a fun one, and bunches of other takeovers too, including travel takeovers for both Broncos and Buffs if you want to go see some football, and of course, Ball Arena takeovers for us. The first one being November 16th against the Washington Capitals. Come watch a Avalanche game in person with the DNVR gang. Should be a ton of fun. Everyone can pester Eric and watch a game with him and see how ridiculous he is as a scout as he just sees incredible things on the ice when he watches the game. He's ridiculous. He's like 15 seconds in advance. He predicts exactly what's going to happen, and then it happens. And I'm just sitting there like, okay, sure, this is crazy. Join us with some of those takeovers. Of course, there are two more later in the season as well, one against Montreal and one against Minnesota too. So come have a great time with us. We always enjoy sports. Go over to thednvr.com and go to our events page where you can sign up for all of our events. And you can always come down to the DNVR bar for watch parties and the like. And then, of course, when you're watching the game, you might as well have some skin in the game. So get with Bet365 today and use the DNVR365 code when you sign up. When you do that and you bet $5 on anything, you get $150 in bonus bets in the Bet365 app. So that's just free money to bet with. You might as well have a little bit of fun with that. Maybe you win a bunch of money and then it's actual free money. Maybe you lose it all and then you don't care because it wasn't real money. So either way, it's a win with Bet365. Jump on, get in with all their boosts. You can even find the DNVR bet that we regularly put up on Bet365. Download the app today. And of course, when you do gamble with Bet365, you must be 21 or older, physically located in Colorado. And if you or someone you know has a gambling problem, call or text 1-800-GAMBLER today. Third period of the DNVR Avalanche podcast. Miles Wood, I think, is pretty established as what he is. I would say the same of Logan O'Connor. You do want to see him come back and be healthy, but you know what you're going to get out of those guys in your lineup. They're not going to excel too high past what they already are. So that kind of leaves the newer guys in the Avalanche forward core. You have Parker Kelly. You have Nikolai Kovalenko. You can throw in some of these other names that I'm not really sure who actually ends up in the lineup. A guy like a Cal Ritchie, a guy like a Yuri Inola. a guy like they just signed this weekend in, I've forgotten his name. Matthew Phillips. Thank you. We don't have to go through all of them, but do you think there is one primed for the biggest breakout this year?
We're hoping it's Kovalenko. Kovalenko feels like he's got an edge and the inside track in that conversation, and he should. I do worry that Bednar notoriously keeps such a short leash with the young players.
He does.
Even Newhook, who had the more obvious upside, struggled to find ice and carve out an NHL role in the Avs lineup specifically, but it was obvious Newhook was an NHL player. It was just hard for him to solidify his fit. I have some concerns around that with Kovalenko, but more optimism that he can overcome that challenge because Eric talked about it earlier. He plays the right way, and he just has to find a way to build his confidence at the NHL level. I think he's worried about making mistakes, and he's already made some, but he has to have a pretty short-term memory when it comes to that. And if he can simplify that part of his game as part of a risk management, I think that, and then lead with the parts of his game that are going to appeal to Bednar. He talks about players being visible shift by shift, being loud players, and I know we joke about that. Kovalenko has to be loud, and that's going to really outline where he fits in this Avs lineup, because it'd be nice. The ceiling is he could be an option in the middle six and play on the second line wing until we get some clarity on Landeskog. That is really ambitious. But the way that he plays the game actually would still fit a fourth line role. And there's need for that as well. That's where we're having the Parker Kelly conversation. And if Kovalenko can sort of satisfy both those things and demonstrate that he could be a full-time NHLer, build a little bit of that trust by having an impressive camp, that's the guy I think who has the biggest upside swing for the Avs this upcoming year.
Yeah, I'm gonna ride that coattail as well. I mean, it's Evan would be proud right now, right? If we're talking like this.
Nah, he's moved on to Gulyev at this point. He's on a new Russian now.
Sorry.
No, he's got a new Russian now.
Evan brought him here. Now he's like, okay, next one. What do I need to do to bring Gulyev? My take on Kovalenko, I wish I knew him personally, not as a player, personally, because I would be able to have a better evaluation a little bit on my mind of what to expect from him, but not knowing him, it's like I played against his dad. His dad was a tank. I mean, he looks exactly like his dad. I mean, they're so solid on their skates. They're like little pit bulls. You know what I mean? They go and they just one-way track, right? And if he can just, and to get back to the point of Bednar, I get it. I get coaches. I understand them. I didn't understand them when I was a player. Now I understand them. You know what I mean? Being on the other side, you understand coaches so much more. And as a player, the one thing I would tell him if he was my friend and we were having a little lunch right now, you know what I mean? I'd be like, you can't be stubborn. You can't be stubborn with your game. You got to go and do what the coach wants you to do. That's at the stage you're at in your career. And what you need to do is take the bull by the horn, and there's no excuses. There's no oh yeah, but God, I made a mistake and he sat me. Perfect. Then don't make that mistake. I mean, I'm just saying, don't make that mistake. Coaches won't just, they don't, it's a game of mistakes. But at first they will try to teach you that those mistakes are very harmful to the way the outcome of a game happens. So don't remake that. Then you're stupid, right? You know what I mean? You keep making the same mistake, then it's qualified as stupid. But you learn a couple lessons, you put your head down, and you go, instead of being stubborn. I'm not saying he is. I don't know him. That's why I said I don't know. But I would just go and say, hey, a little bit. We had Crow last week, right? And again, it's something I did. When you're trying to figure out where you fit in the nest, or where you fit in the pizza of things with the Avalanche, you just got to go and do what they tell you to do. And if you do that, seems like he's got extremely a lot of potential. You know what I mean? And it's more like, get out there and do it. And if you F up, which you will, it's okay. Take your pills and get back, and then do it again, and then do it the right way. And then all of a sudden you're going to gain confidence. You're going to gain respect from the coaches. You're going to gain respect from players. There will be a hole at some point, wherever that is. It is end up, like we said, with the absence of some guys. Do you end up there somewhere in the middle? Do you end up on the second? I don't know. Time will tell. But I think he's the logical guy. He is not 20. He's older. He's played against, professional in Russia for years now. This is the guy. If he can't do it, he won't do it. Because it's not like you're waiting 2-3 years. The time is now for a guy like that. It's a different kind of the word prospect, right? It's just he's not a prospect. He's a pro.
Yeah. Based on the type of player he projects as, if he wants to show his upside, if he wants to show Bednar what he can be, to me, just be Artturi Lekkonen's shadow for the first 30 games of this year. Follow him around, learn his habits, learn the system the way he plays it, play that style of hockey, and I think it's a pretty easy fit for Kovalenko.
Bingo.
So that's kind of the forward core. I know there's some other guys we didn't talk about, but I'm sure they'll come up in training camp plenty. Moving on to the defensive side, we already talked about Cale. Devon Toews, steady, reliable, or, can he get back into that top 10 Norris voting level?
I'll go first again. My take on him is I think you do so well for so many years, and you're so much I'm going to use a bad word, an unknown, right? Of course he was a known. Just listen to AJ's reaction on that pod, right? When you guys were together and when the Avs went and got him. So I'm not saying an unknown, a non sexy, top 6 guy, on D, right? Top 4 guy. This is more a guy. He was a casualty of a, salary cap problems, and Mac and Joe took full advantage of that situation with Lou, and all of a sudden he comes here as the perfect fit for Cale Makar. You're talking about Mutt and Jeff, and right? I mean, like shake and bake, whatever you want to call it. Like it's unbelievable. Now, you do so good. Then it's a contract year, right? And then you think that things won't get done till the end of the year. You're not too sure what it's going to happen. Then all of a sudden it gets done fairly early in the season. And then it just kind of takes – I'm not saying he stopped playing. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying all of a sudden you're like, okay, that's taken care of. And then all of a sudden, him and Cale didn't have the same freaking year that they've had for a few years. Now, again, you go from an A+ to an A-. We are nitpicking
right.
here. This guy's unbelievable. What you just said about Artturi Lekkonen and a guy like, Kovalenko, my lord, Brandstrom, all those guys, Schilly, buddy, follow what Devon Toews does. Play like that. You will play another 15 years. He is that good. He is that awesome. But I think there's a notch to him, like we said about Cale. There's another notch to them as a pair where they've been so dominant. Where this year, again, boy, oh boy, 32 teams would take them as their top pair, right? So it's like you went from an A+ to an A-. Let's get back to an A+. We're nitpicking here, but this guy's amazing.
It is hard to imagine more upside for Toews because he is maybe the epitome of consistency and steadiness. But I agree with Eric that I think there is one other level, and it's a couple things. All of the additions to the defense that we hoped would help with load management for Cale Makar, you can hope then for the same effect on Devon Toews. And so a little better distribution of minutes hopefully also frees up Devon Toews in a way to lean into the parts of his game that are really highly skilled. He's already so smart in his own end. You can count on that and hope that continues to be a staple in his game. But he also likes to get active in the rush, and that's kind of it's not like the production needs to be much bigger, but that's where I see room for improvement. And it's the first year of his big contract. Like that big money hits. And I also think he had a baby last year, so I think he became a new dad.
Yep.
So I just think between wanting to really demonstrate that he is worth all of that money in the extension and hopefully settling into a groove in fatherhood, because he already had a baby. But it's just, I'm sure that was some stress last year as well. And then hopefully he gets to benefit from the residuals of the decor being a little more balanced.
And if he just finished his backdoor chances last year, he could have been a 15-goal scorer. So just do that, and you're through the roof, Devon. Okay. I think Manson pretty clearly established what he is. You're not expecting too much more, too much less from him. Obviously, you'd love him to stay healthy, but we understand that might not be the case. Sam Girard. We know historically he's had a whole lot more in the tank than the 18 points he put up last year. Obviously, that was a year where he's coming off of the player assistance program, and he looked a lot better when he did return from that. It's interesting because can Girard get back to that level, one? And two, if he doesn't, there are guys kind of nipping at his heels at this point to fill in that role, right? So where does Sammy end up this year?
He looked great after his return from the player assistance program. And I also think the role that he settled into on the PK and becoming a reliable guy there, especially absorbing some of those minutes with Manson, is, put the production aside for a second, that's already a huge improvement. And that improves the bottom line for everybody's role in a given night and the minutes that they're taking on. It helps to take a little pressure off of Toews and Makar. And I think that Girard took such strides in becoming a reliable PK guy that already deserves some recognition. If he can continue to be that for the Avs, it's already really huge. But to your point, with a little competition brewing around him and promise already shown in the player that came back from the player assistance program, I think there's room for improvement with production too. And I'm not entirely sure that Girard plays along Manson for the entirety of the season. And it could unlock more offensive opportunity depending on what type of player he plays alongside, and if they complement each other, there could be even more of an offensive burst waiting to happen. And the Avs really set Girard up for success in that way, not only adding the competitive aspect, but also giving him complementary talent that might just allow, the rising tide to lift all ships.
I love Sammy. I wish nothing but the best for him. I think for people, it's like Mikko, right? Remember I say sometimes you can't win. Over the years, I felt that Sammy was, he can't win. You know what I mean? And now it took for him being away for a bit, right? For all the player assistance program, that all of a sudden you're like, oh my God, he's actually pretty good. You know what I mean? He's actually pretty valuable to a team. And Sam Girard is very valuable to a team. He's outstanding. He's a good young man. He can skate. When you can skate, this game is so much easier than if, guys that have average hockey skating abilities. He is elite. And yes, I'll say this about Sammy. If you want Sammy to be a physical guy in front of the net and take out, Wilson from frickin' Washington, but it's not going to happen. It's not. He's going to finish second. And that's not what he does. That's not what he is. Sammy is a guy that retrieves and gets pucks out quick. He's a guy that can jump in and exactly what the Avs talk about all the time about activating and all that kind of stuff. When you activate, when you're feeling good about yourself and you're feeling good physically and mentally, the Avalanche, you're going to put up points. You're going to put up points if you're a defenseman just because the way they play, right? Now, does he play on the first power play? Does he play? He barely plays any power play. That's because the first power play plays the whole time, as we all know. So it's kind of hard to put up points. But if Sammy can play like he was playing for a lot of times this year, you know what I mean? He will get back to having a little bit more production, because it comes naturally, just because that is that organically, whatever you want to call that team. You get points that just, because guys are so good, including himself. I think he's a big part. He is a big part. Now, are we going to see Sam Girard like last year, where he comes in, he's decent, then he goes away, for a bit and then comes back and was really good? Then it's hard because it's such a messed up season. You don't spend your summer working out and say, oh, yeah, I'm going to be playing, and then all of a sudden, oh, I'll be gone, right? In the player assistance program, it throws your season off a little bit. He did it remarkably. His comeback, I thought he was outstanding. He looked happy. He looked cordial. You know, when you see him, like he looked like he felt good and he felt happy with everything that had gone on. Now, what is he now? 20? What's Sammy? He's going to be what? 27? 27, 8? Yeah. So, you know what? Defense, as you know, this guy never really played in the American League. You know, he is probably just maturing right now to probably having
only 26.
His 26, because he's been around forever. You know what I mean? So 26, 27 as a D in the league with all the experience that he has, I think he can have a monster year. I think he can have a monster year because I think he'll be ready to go. He'll be ready to become something that he hasn't been, which is feeling good physically and mentally and getting ready to hit the ice. And I think he's going to be outstanding. And then hopefully, you know, he makes, you know, some people eat their words. And, you know, like I eat my words with some guys. And, you know, I was wrong. And this guy, I don't think I've been wrong on him. I really want him to have, like, you know what? You want a guy to have a career year? That's the guy I want. If the Avs can get a career year out of Sammy, they are in freaking great shape.
I agree with that for sure. To wrap up the defense, you have DeHaan, who is a known quantity on your bottom pair. And then, obviously, both Brandstrom and Shillington are upside swings for the cheap for Colorado. So I want to ask you guys, which one of those two do you think has more upside to give Colorado?
I'll go first. I'm going to go Shilly because I've seen him play so many times. Shilly can, again, not to be confused, right? Spelled with a K, but
yep.
Shillington. I can't wait for people to see him day in and day out. And this guy can skate. This guy can skate. Like, he can go. Like, if you go red line to red line, no puck, put everybody on the line there, I'm telling you, he's freaking close to Mac. You know what I mean? Like, I didn't say there's a puck in the equation. You know, I told you guys back then, we used to do that for fun, and we'd be like, oh, Joe Sakic's the fastest guy. And I don't care, Joe, if he's listening. He wasn't. Adam Foote was. And people were like, what? Footy was the freaking fastest goal line to goal line on our team back then. And it's like, this guy, Shillington, can skate. Now, you throw a puck in the equation, it's a little different, you know. He's not a finesse guy, and I'm not saying he sucks. I'm saying, you know, Mac would just carry the biscuit like he does all game. I don't expect Oliver Shillington to carry the puck like Mac. That's what I'm trying to say. But speed helps. He can skate. He can just go. And I think he's going to be ready to go. And again, it's a guy that's betting on himself because of the right team, the right situation. And a little bit like Drouin last year, actually, it wasn't a couple years ago. He's hoping to get in there and have a career year. We were just talking about that with Sammy. He can have a career year, and then all of a sudden you're betting on yourself, and then you can get into that bigger contract. So I think he's the perfect example. This is why he's ending up here. And same with Brandstrom, where Brandstrom's a little opposite, right? He's a silver spooner. You know my expression? He's a silver spooner, right? He's a first rounder. Yeah, you always have it easy when you're a first rounder, right? When I say easy is opportunity. What you do with the opportunity, it's up to you. But your opportunity will become a little quicker, and it will become maybe a little more often than a guy that's never been drafted or fourth or fifth or sixth rounder. So that's the difference with those first rounders, silver spooners. They are. Yep. And then what you do with it. And this guy obviously was part of that trade. You know, I mean, they didn't want to get rid of him from VGK to Ottawa, right, in the Carlson trade. But he does end up there. He does end up in a pack where it probably wasn't the right place. There was a lot of prospects, a lot of people young. The next thing you know, you got to go cut your teeth in the American League. And then all of a sudden, he becomes one of those guys that's reliable, that can skate pucks out, a little bit like Sammy, you know. And all of a sudden, it's like, oh, maybe I am not that stud that's going to get 40, 50 points in the NHL. But you can also become a very nice freaking 5'6" D in the NHL by skating. And I think people, if they're not familiar with him, he's a very simple player. He's a very nice skater, very smooth. And I think that the opportunity will be there, but he's going to have to fight. He's going to have to fight. And like Shilly's going to have to fight. So does Brandstrom, because there's a guy that we all like too that's going to be there is Malinsky. And there's going to be some fighting there, and I love it. I love competition, and I think these guys are up for it.
I'm going to go with Shillington as well. And I just look side by side. There's a lot of similarities in this crop of players, but what sets Shillington apart is the contract situation in my eyes.
True.
I think he'd be a Calgary Flame today if both parties had come to an agreement. And I hope that there's a little bit of chip on his shoulders that whatever he asked for out of Calgary that he didn't get, I hope he can demonstrate in this year why he felt he deserved whatever he asked for and do it on a cup contending team with a really competitive window. I think the speed is also going to help him to separate from his peers a bit, though they're all pretty fast. And then the other thing, it's not Zdeno Chara's shot, but he actually has decent power in his shot, decent power and speed. And so I think that's going to be just another tool in his arsenal that he can use to his advantage to carve out opportunity for him that might be bigger than a third pairing role in the future.
All right, I'll live alone on Brandstrom Island then.
It's neck and neck.
For me, it's just the defense. I think Brandstrom can evolve into a little bit more well-rounded player than maybe Shillington can, and play in a few more opportunities than you might feel comfortable if you're Jared Bednar playing Shillington. But if either one of them has a breakout year, the Avs defense is looking pretty darn good. So you're feeling good there. The goalies we won't get too much into, but obviously expectations for Georgiev should be a significantly better regular season, and expectations for Annunen is he's the full-time backup and essentially will get as much opportunity as he earns. So if you want to hear more about the goalies, we had a couple episodes already this offseason about them, and we'll have probably another one this Wednesday. Peter Budaj coming on the show. Shout out Boods. So that will come later. A couple of other news and notes around the league and with the Avs. Shout out Katie Goss. Thank you for your service. Moving on from Altitude, she just announced today. So she'll be missed around here. She was always fun. Always enjoyed talking to her. So bye.
Katie was awesome. It's sad to see her leave this space because she was such a true pro. And so somebody like me especially drew inspiration from her and having her around. And she was so easy to talk to around the rink. I feel like, especially in this last year, I grew closer to her than the year before. And so it's sad to see her leave just when things were getting good.
Yep. Agreed.
Yeah, I mean, good hockey person, right? I mean, hockey family, loves the game, loves being around hockey, and wish him nothing but the best. Yeah, she was worked with her for a year, so it was fun, and one of the bigger and better things. Let's go.
Yep. Beyond that, around the league, Edmonton announcing Evander Kane's probably going to end up on LTIR for bone surgery. Typical cap evasion stuff there is what it is. And then from our end, if this episode of the podcast was way too optimistic for you, go check out my newest YouTube video where I talk about how bad the Avs are drafting beyond the first round. And it's really bad. Trust me. If you want to feel sad and not optimistic, that's the video for you. Highly recommend. Go check that out on our YouTube channel. Anything else you guys wanted to touch on today before we wrap this thing up?
I just want to shout out Cal Ritchie in the conversation today specifically. Now, you mentioned at the top of the show, this is going to be something we talk about more at length in camp, and that's a camp conversation.
Yep.
But I think Cal Ritchie is the most intriguing player in this conversation because I'm not exactly expecting him to be a full-time NHLer. You know, I look at the World Junior Showcase from this summer in the best-on-best environment with his peers. I don't know that he's separated enough to be entering full-time NHL conversations. But if by some chance he did, that completely changes the complexion of the Avs next year. And that is a player then who can have huge upside for the Avs.
Very good point.
Yeah, I can add that too. I mean, one year we had Calvin Pickard as a 19-year-old pegged on the board to make our team. Why? Because we had no other options, and that's in the summer. So Cal Ritchie, when you think about it, should be in that board, right? I mean, until training camp,
until September 10th when some guy gets signed. Yeah, got it.
You know what I mean? And then you go there, and then until you're not there, because there's a better option than you. You know what I mean?
Yep.
And you're better off going somewhere where you can develop at a better pace. So we'll see. That's why there's training camp. Your team's usually 95, 97% made. There's always that one spot. You know what I mean? Like, so maybe he's that guy. We'll see.
Yep.
Calvin Pickard wasn't.
Nope. And then we have one super chat here from Melanie who says, I hope you all are having a great summer. Thanks for all the content. Take care. Always appreciate you,
Her
Melanie.
dog is really cute.
Yeah, that is a cute puppy right there. We are out of here for today. We'll be back tomorrow talking Olympics. So that should be a fun one. And then I mentioned Peter Budaj coming on Wednesday. So keep it here. Subscribe to the YouTube channel. Go check out all our other content at thednvr.com. And we will talk to you on the next one.
We all silly like the mayor.